Okay, so the question as far as water supply is concerned, so if you've got a lovely garden pond like this, then you've got various options for water, and the options aren't necessarily right or wrong. So option number one is the good old garden hose. Now, there is nothing wrong with using the garden hose as long as you're aware of the fact that Sydney tap water doses the chlorine to maximum minimum level, which means that if you're going to be adding a little bit just to top the water up, chances are you're absolutely fine. On the other hand, if you're going to put a large amount of water in there, then you need to be aware that there is possible to get chlorine and chloramone through the tap. And when I say possible, I mean the way they dose it these days, they don't just dose it to a consistent level because they find the bugs actually get used to the consistent level because the chlorine is used for sterilizing our tap water. And so basically what they do is they'll test the water. If they start finding pathogens and bacteria in the water, they'll up the chlorine. If there's not pathogens and bacteria in the water, they won't add chlorine, which means that you could do a large water change on this pond several times and not have a problem. And then you could do it once, and then suddenly you have a huge problem. And that's because it will depend how much chlorine is in the water, and how much chlorine is in the water is just governed by when the chlorine was actually added. The other option is rainwater or rain tank water, and that is absolutely an option as well. You can use that, but no matter what water you use, you need to be testing the water on a semi-regular basis. For a pond like this, if you had a regular habit, and then you tested the water every, say, 1 to 3 months, that would usually be fine. But over time, your GHs are going to tend to accumulate, your pH is going to tend to drop, and your KH is going to tend to drop. So what a lot of customers will do is just bring us in a little sample of water and a little video of their pond. Even if they do that a few times a year, that's usually substantial in order for us to advise you to make sure that your water quality is good. Because once again, it isn't the water source that's important, it is the results that are important. So if you have a nice clean water tank and you're adding rainwater, that is totally okay. But also be aware that rainwater is very soft, so the pH will fall very fast. So therefore you do need to be testing it on a semi-regular basis. And the tap, if you're adding a very small amount at a time, that's okay. But if you start using larger amounts, it is always safer. And I always encourage that we use water ager, and the water ager will instantly remove the chlorine out of the water. And the water ager is best added to the bucket before you add it to the pond. And if you do add it to the pond, that's okay, but you need to treat the volume of the actual pond. Now, having plants in your pond is an absolutely wonderful thing, but a lot of it comes down to the actual plant and the amount of light it gets and the environment it gets for whether that plant goes well. So a lot of the time you do have to try different plants to find out what works in your pond. Now, this pond actually has a whole lot of fish, but they don't know me, so they're hiding. And you can actually be amazed when you get to know your fish. When you walk up over the tank, you'll find that all your fish will come and congregate, whereas sometimes when a stranger comes, they will not do that. That's not unusual behavior. So as far as the plant's concerned, you put the plant in. If the plant grows, everything's great. Over time, if you notice the plant going yellow, then that means you need to up the iron. So there's fertilizer tabs that you can use, and we can green the plant back up again. If the plant is under the water and you see black algae growing all over the plant, then we can use organic carbons to help fix that. And if you see your plants getting torn apart, it usually means that the fish are doing that, because most fish are very rough on the plants. So in situations like this where they're not really getting access to the plant, it's really ideal. And it really is great when you've got plant in there that can grow and grow, and then you can harvest it out, because you don't want the plants to overtake the situation. You want the plants to add to the situation and not overtake the situation. So don't be afraid every now and then to get in and pull the plants out, to thin the plants out, and then all the nutrients that the plants have absorbed have actually been discarded, which is an absolutely wonderful thing. Fish quality is a result of 50% water quality and 50% food quality. So a lot of my job is going from pond to pond, tank to tank, and doing consultations with what's going on. And basically the way my job works is I'll go to one tank or one pond and I'll look at the fish and they look pretty good. Then I'll test the water and it's absolutely terrible. Then I'll check the food they feed, and sure enough, very good quality food. On the other hand, I then can go to the very next house. All the fish are dying. I can test the water. It's much better than the last house, but then sure enough, all the fish are dying, even though the water quality is better. And then I check the food, and sure enough, it's never good quality food. So what I'm looking for in a food is I'm looking for a slow-cooked food, such as Danichi. When it comes to fish quality, I do not believe there's a food that tops this one. This is a holistic, slow-cooked food. And the results you get with your fish, because the fish actually get the vitamins, and it's not completely digestible, so it goes right through their digestive system. And how much healthier, more colourful, and more vibrant the fish are when fed on this, you will only believe when you see it. My other favourite food is probiotics from New Life Spectrum. And when it comes to pure fish quality, I think this one's the winner. When it comes to clean, then I think probiotics is the winner. And once again, these foods are set at absorption rate. So therefore, the fish will absorb different amounts of the different nutrients, and these foods are set at the absorption rate of the fish. Therefore, you only need to feed very small amounts in order to get maximum nutrients. With your cheaper foods, you've got to feed very large amounts to try to satisfy their nutrients. So fish food is half of it, water quality is half of it. So if you bring down to the shop a sample of your water and a little video of your pond running or your tank running, then we can look over that and give you any advice. And we also want to see any bits and pieces that you've got. So if you've got water ages or whatever you've got, show us in the video so we can recommend it. Now, so we've tested this water now, and the pH is very low. Now, over time, it is inevitable that the pH is going to fall because the fish are going to produce carbonic acids, metabolic acids, and all other sorts of acids, which means that it's going to go down. Now, the only way that it really gets back up is a little bit of photosynthesis and agitation. So we see we've got a little bit of agitation here. That's good. The agitation is what gives us our oxygen because we want to disperse the CO2 because the carbonic acid in the water, the carbon dioxide is going to create carbonic acid and it's going to lower our pH. Now, this pond also has a KH of 0.2. Now, over time, this can be tragic. This is not something that's going to kill your fish straight away, but over a long period of time, having a low KH level wouldn't be any different to, for example, you having a low calcium level in your body. So though it might not kill you today or tomorrow, over time, a low calcium level is going to be a major problem to you. And over time, a low KH or calcium carbonate is going to be a problem for the fish. So I'm just trying to get a good look at these fish to see what their health is like, which so far they look fine, but I'd like a much better look at them. That's really what we're wanting to see in the video when you bring the video down. Now, as far as other tests, so there's pretty much no ammonia or no nitrite. Now, the filter, the bacteria that grows in the filter is what needs to break down the ammonia and nitrite. Currently, we're not getting ammonia and nitrite. So I'm going to open that filter up soon and have a look. Also, this filter has a UV sterilizer in it. And it's really good to replace the UV sterilizer tube about once a year. Otherwise, it won't really be effective anymore. And it's really important when you clean the filter, the sponges and so forth need to be cleaned in water you take out of the fish pond and never cleaned in tap water. Because tap water contains chlorine and the chlorine can kill the good bacteria which is in the filter. So it's important just to use pond water to clean the filter. Now, if this was my pond, I would absolutely and totally consider buying an Awasa filter. Now, Awasa filters, they cost a little bit more, but they're really, really worth it. To clean it, all you do is switch it to backwash, and then you pump on a handle, and then that cleans it for you. And it cleans it unbelievably effectively. So it's a really easy way to clean your filter, and it also backwashes your pond at the same time. Now, when you top up the water, that's called a top up. That is not a water change. Now, because this water here has very low GH, very low KH, and very low pH, I wouldn't use a normal water ager. I would probably go for an all-in-one water ager. And this one here actually raises GH, KH, and pH all at the same time. So this is like an all-in-one water ager. Because at the moment, this pond needs to raise pH, KH, and GH, and this product will do it all in one go. So I would be using this for my top-ups at the moment. Under normal circumstances, if I don't want to raise those levels, for a top-up, I would usually not use that one. I would normally just use a straight water ager. He's a good-looking fellow, isn't he? If you use a normal water ager, that's going to just top up the water and not top up any of the minerals. So if we tell you, hey, look, your KH and GH is all good, it's better to use that one. If we tell you your minerals are all low, it's better to use that one. So that's a good thing to just be aware of. And a top-up is when the water's just getting topped up. And a water change is when you take the water out. Now, a water changes are very, very important because over time, you can build up what's called accumulants. And accumulants are what we label all the things that we don't really know and we can't really test for. I mean, pheromones, phenols, all sorts of things build up in water. And so what we want is every now and then, we want to take some water out, put some fresh water in. And a water change is literally that. You're changing the water. You're not just topping up the water. Because you'll be amazed how much evaporation you get. But the top-up is different. Like, for example, with my old pond, I used to have a 20-litre bucket, and on a semi-regular basis, I'd just scoop some water out, chuck some on the plants, chuck them around the thing. It's all lovely, high-nutrient water for your garden. And the fact that that's getting done fairly regularly means that regularly there's water going out, which means you regularly have to put water in. And if you make that a part of your garden maintenance, then it's an easy way of incorporating the pond into the actual garden maintenance. And also, when you're doing your backwash with your Awasa filter, then you can actually attach that to a hose. You can even hose it around. You can remove some water. You fill the water up again. If you're only removing a little bit, then the water you're adding to top it up is not important. If you're going to add a fair bit, then suddenly it becomes very important because you need to use a water ager because if you've been unlucky and they've just dosed the chlorine in the tap water, that means it is possible you'll kill all the good bacteria in your filter and it's possible that you'll kill your actual fish. And this is a sore point for a lot of people because you can do the same thing 10 times and not have a problem. Then suddenly you do it once, exactly the same as you always did it, and then suddenly all your fish die. And that's just what happens because the way that they dose the chlorine to a maximum minimum level. So once again, inside here is a UV sterilizer we want to replace yearly. Inside here is filter sponges that we want to clean in water from the fish tank, not water from the tap. And inside the filter, the pump itself is going to be an impeller. We want to pull that out and give it a clean at least yearly. This is a fairly new pump, isn't it? So this one probably won't need cleaning. But knowing that there's an impeller in there and giving that a clean on a semi-regular basis is really, really important.